Well, key issues between Hollywood writers and studios still linger as the strike heads into its fifth month. But media mogul Barry Diller warning of catastrophic consequences should Hollywood studios continue to partner with streaming giants like Netflix, even calling it the architect of the strike on Kara Swisher's podcast. So who's poised to take on Netflix as the strike continues? Mark Douglas, Mountain CEO, joins us now. Mark, great to have you here with us in studio. Yeah. I mean, these comments are sending shockwaves right now through the equity price action of some of the largest streamers and some of them former linear powerhouses in television as well. I mean, what do you make of the comments here? And could we really see some type of new negotiation process where the different studios are trying to keep Netflix out of the conversation?
Well, if you look at the economics on it, I'm not sure how that quite works. So, look at Disney, for example. They did about $10 billion in studio revenue last year. Netflix is 3 times that just by themselves. So they're the size of like a couple of major studios combined. So I don't know how you take an industry that seems to be largely striking over streaming and try to separate it out. And that's, like the writers and the actors that kind of think that makes sense. I think the other thing you see from the comments is that whenever these studios are in trouble, it's like the finance team takes over, and it just doesn't make sense. I was talking to a friend last night. I was like, if we were in a restaurant, I'm like, if this restaurant had like fewer people in it, you don't call your accountant.
No.
You call the chef. So I think these studios have to meet consumers where they are. The consumer sees no difference. Like Oppenheimer, 3 hours. I want to see it at home. I don't want to go in the theater. I'm actually willing to pay more. This is also not new. All this talk was on DVDs, 20, 30 years ago. Every time there's a new technology, it's like everyone's up in arms over it. And so bottom line, focus on the consumer. Bring the content, consumers will bring the dollars, and we can go forward with everyone entertained and the industry in a healthy state.
And Mark, Rochelle here. Yeah. As we look at Netflix, obviously holding the crown here, but then when you think of who is the next best contender, because Amazon has an interesting market there, because it's usually people subscribing for Amazon, not necessarily for the streaming content. It's because they've already, got it for the shopping or something else. Yeah. Who would be the next closest contender to a Netflix?
Well, I think a lot of people are thinking maybe Apple, mainly because Apple has essentially the dollars to lead a consolidation. I'm not sure that actually makes sense for Apple because Apple's more focused on a bundle. Remember, Apple not only has Apple TV, they have Apple Music, Apple News, Apple Games. And so what Apple wants is they want $20 a month from every iPhone user in the world. And they don't have to create content for music. They don't have to create content for games or for news. But they are clearly positioned, if there's going to be a consolidation, they are the ones that can lead it. Whether that makes sense for Apple as a company, I'm not so sure. But they're in the best next position. I agree with you. I don't think Amazon, that there's a lot of reasons there for Amazon to lead a consolidation of a bunch of these studios.
You were talking about Oppenheimer a moment ago.
Yeah.
That's a film that was already in the can. Promotion had already been done.
Yeah.
So by when now do many of the talks for strikes and negotiations need to be netted out by?
I think so. So until the actors strike, you could still film even though the writers were on strike. And
Sure.
So I think when the actors went on strike, that literally has shut things down. I mean, if you look back on COVID, I mean, they went quite a while without new content and still were able to survive that. So, you're looking, I think, Q1 and Q2 before consumers are affected in terms of they can't get the content they want. And there are a lot of big shows out now. You have Billions out. You have new seasons on all these streamers. So I think the fall and the winter is taken care of. By the early next year, it's really going to start to affect the funnel of content that comes out. It's going to start to become a big problem.
Yeah.
And Mark, who do you think is most at risk in terms of losing brand loyalty? Obviously, you've got consumers trying to pinch some pennies here. There might be 1 or 2 streaming services that they're going to hold on to, but then manufacturing things like live sports coming into the mix. Who do you think is going to have the best brand loyalty out of the streamers?
Well, it's always Netflix, and the reason why is, without a doubt, the reason why is Netflix is where you go when you're not looking for your favorite show. I think most people I know, and I'd say this for myself, when I turn on on my TV, the first thing I do is see what's on Netflix. So they're positioned very well. Second thing I want is sports content, which comes from like Hulu, YouTube TV. In the third slot, I think Disney, everyone thought they had that locked up with Disney Plus, but Disney has stumbled quite a bit. Their Star Wars content is lagging. So I think it's kind of a toss-up, and a lot of people, their behavior is, well, I'll binge on Disney for 3 months, then I'll binge on Showtime for 3 months, I'll binge on Max. And so that third slot, I think, is really where a lot of the competition is. The first slot, I mean, Netflix just has it on lock. They have muscle memory, meaning you turn on your TV and you just go for Netflix. And so I think that's going to be hard for anyone to overcome.
Well, for a lot of sports fans out there, they tend to have the second spot that they go to where their team is playing.
Right.
And I mean, as we're beginning NFL season, of course, there's a different type of football that's capturing attention. Is Messi now playing in the MLS, and Apple has those rights for broadcasting and for streaming. So is the Messi effect taking hold? Is that as effective as Apple was hoping and intended it to be in this battle for some of these streaming rights for sports right now?
Yeah, so the way I think to always think of Apple is they don't want the fee for Apple Plus. They want the fee for the Apple bundle. So they're always going to try to put in enough content that you'll just go for the whole bundle. You'll switch from Spotify to Apple Music if you're a Spotify user. And so I think, they've gone after sports. Messi made a lot of sense for them. He's like taken over. I live in Miami. He's taken over. You see posters from everywhere in Miami. So, people really love that. But I don't think you'll see Apple like kind of keep going further, because their bar is to stay on track for that $19.99 a month bundle for all the services. And everyone has to remember, for 3 of those, they have no production costs whatsoever. Right? They're just streaming music. They're not making the music. So it's particularly profitable for them.
And Mark, as a football fan, if I was going to sign up for that Apple streaming service, it would be maybe just to watch Messi play, but chances are afterwards I probably wouldn't use the service anymore. I probably would disconnect it. But I do want to ask you, in terms of losing magic, I have to ask you about Disney Plus, and how do you see their streaming strength going forward?
Well, I mean, they have the assets. The question is do they want to invest in them? I mean, they've kind of actually said they're de-emphasizing Star Wars a bit. Obviously, they have Marvel Studios. I think Disney as a company has a lot of strength. They have all the sports. I mean, if you own ESPN, I mean, you just, to some extent, you almost own sports. They have all the children's programming, family programming, and for some reason, they just seem to not be able to bundle it together in a way that they keep growing the subscribers. I think they'll figure it out. Bob Iger is obviously a strong leader. And Disney, if you look at their revenue, it's gone up consistently over the last 10 years. It's profitability where they've stumbled. I mean, in 2019, they were doing something like $12 billion in profits, and now they're doing $3 billion. Even though their revenue is higher. So I think for Disney, it's like do 10% more with 10% less, fix the profits, and just keep giving consumers what they want. That's the bottom line.
We got to go. If there's one name that you think wins out the advertising play here now with all these streaming services adding in that tier, who is it?
I think over the long term, it's definitely Netflix. But in the short term, I think NBC is actually a lot stronger than most people give them credit for.
All right.
All right. Thanks so much. Mark Douglas there, Mountain CEO. Thank you for joining us this morning.